Look, right now, somewhere, there's software, and you know this. It's freaking everybody out. They can take 30 seconds of your voice, my voice, make you say almost anything. Put your face on somebody completely different's body, and make it look totally real. Your bank could call you right now and not actually be your bank. Your own kid could call you and say they need help, they need money, and it's not actually a real kid. And it's freaking people out. So they start tying it into Revelation. But I don't hear people tying it into the broader historical context and what the Bible actually says about this. And I know what some of you are already thinking. Here we go. Another prophecy guy dragging Revelation to every news cycle. I get it. I've seen those guys. I've said before, look, flat out, I'm not that guy. I still mean that. This isn't a video about decoding the mark of the beast on some microchip somewhere or looking out for the Antichrist, right? Or a countdown clock to the end of the world. But here's why I'm actually making this. Because this is an old human problem with a brand new tool that's in the midst. And I think we've made Revelation too simple. Some Christians, you'll see it probably in this comment section, will say it was only about Rome back in the day. It's about that culture that John was writing to, right? And others will say, no, it's only about the final days, the end times, right? The end of the world. But what if God can speak into a specific moment in history while also establishing a pattern that shows up again later? You see, we see that over and over in the Bible. Not because we can make the Bible mean whatever we want. It's not it at all. But because God sometimes does something in history that turns out bigger than the people who first experienced it. If that's true, then Revelation doesn't have to be either. It doesn't have to be Rome or the end of the world. Right? It can tell us something about both, and it can also tell us about our current moment. And once you see that pattern, you can start to extrapolate what we should be doing as current believers. That's what I see nobody doing. So I have 3 steps that we can lean into, right? So let's start with Noah. Before the flood, people were living normal lives. They were eating, drinking, getting married, building businesses, building things, making plans for the future. And Jesus pulls us right back in that moment when he talks about his return. Life looks normal, but underneath it, Genesis says the earth had become corrupt. And the inclination of the human heart was only to do evil. Here's what gets me on this piece. When people keep pushing a line without seeing immediate consequences, right? Eventually they stop believing the line is real. Well, God said not to do this, but I did it and nothing really happened. Maybe he's not judging me for it. Maybe it doesn't really matter that much. And you see, that's how something that once really bothered you becomes normal. It's not all at once. It's a slow slide, a little compromise here, a little rationalizing. Everybody does it. And, Johnny got ahead doing this. And eventually you don't feel like you've changed. You just get used to it. And when we look back at Egypt, Pharaoh's magicians, they could reproduce some of the signs Moses performed. They could imitate what God was doing, but they couldn't ultimately do it. Something can look convincing and still be false. The Israelites may have been thinking, well, they're doing this. Which one's real? Resemblance is not identity. And convincing you of something is not the same thing as truth. We're getting into a world where imitation is getting very, very good. A voice can sound like you. A face can look like you. A video can move the exact way that you move. But that doesn't make it true. Another historical piece, Rome. Think about the people living inside of it. History keeps teaching us the things that look permanent usually aren't. Here's the real question Rome leaves us with, I think. What did it reveal about the way human beings behave when power, money, culture, and worship, they all start moving in the exact same direction? That's not a Rome question. That's a human question. It's something we got to wrestle with today. God knew that there would be other generations and other cultures, other technologies that would come along and civilizations. And that doesn't mean every new event is Revelation being fulfilled. A war happens and you see all these people say, oh, it's Armageddon, it's the end of the world, it's the last war. A politician all of a sudden gets powerful and they're like, that guy's the Antichrist. AI shows up and people are like, but there it is, I knew it. No, we don't know that. we should still be paying attention. Because here's where the ancient and modern actually come together. This is why I made this video, to help with this. For most of history, if you heard a man's voice, you could assume he'd actually spoken. But that's changing. We're already seeing it. We're getting closer to a world where you may actually have to prove you're human. I get comments all the time, whether it be in my morning lives or on video like this. Search the comment section. That's not you. That's AI. That guy's not really real. This is all AI. I'm sitting there thinking I'm the guy in the video. But that's where we are. Authenticity has to be proven. Now, you see, deception, it used to really take work to deceive people. But now it's just a download. It's the same old human problem, but a brand new tool. And this is where Revelation gets real interesting, I think. Not because AI proves prophecy. It doesn't. But because Jesus repeatedly warned his followers, do not be deceived. Right? Stay awake. Be faithful. The danger doesn't look like a monster. It looks normal. Looks convincing. Looks like something everybody uses. Right? Looks like everybody's fine with it. Out here in Wyoming, right, I think a storm makes this easier to understand. You see, because when one's coming, the sky doesn't always just turn black. Sometimes it's just still out here. It's like too still. And the animals get real quiet. The wind will die down before it changes. And you learn to read that quiet, not just the noise of what's happening. See, that's discernment. It's not paranoia. It's knowing what happens before everybody convinces you that it didn't happen. So what do you actually do with this? What are those three things? How can we? First, stop outsourcing your discernment. I see this everywhere. The world wants you to, right? Don't let an app, an algorithm, a headline decide what's true for you. Every once in a while, stop and ask yourself, why do I believe this? Who told me this? What would actually change my mind about this thing? The hardest one in this is, what if I'm actually wrong, right? The second thing you can do, practice telling the truth when it's cheap, not just when it's costly. You don't suddenly become faithful when the cost gets real high. You practice when the cost is low, and you will do the same thing when the cost is high. Small honesty, when nobody's grading you, nobody's looking, is what builds the character that doesn't crack when the pressure gets real. Third thing, build a life that doesn't need a filter. Look, I switched from just reading the Bible on my phone to actually just going and reading hard copies, and it changed something. Felt small at first, right? Pointless change. But holding actual pages, nothing personalized to me on them, no algorithm deciding what verse I should see or what book I should read, right? Made the words feel like they were less content and more like truth in my life that I had to sit with and wrestle with. You see, I don't know if we're in the final days. I don't know exactly how every symbol in Revelation gets fulfilled. And you know what? Neither do you. But I do know this. The point isn't to tell you what's coming. It's to tell you who you need to be when it gets here. You can know every single theory about the Antichrist and still be spiritually asleep, spiritually dead. Eventually, every man finds out what he actually believes. And it's usually not when things are easy. It's usually when things go sideways and they get real hard real quick. Are you going to pick truth or are you going to pick comfort? You can pick Christ or the crowd. So no, I'm not telling you the end is here. I'm not telling you AI is the beast. I'm telling you to pay attention. Because if the world gets harder to understand, Jesus doesn't become harder to trust. And if someday the world really does arrive at the moment where Revelation describes the end of the world, I don't want to be that guy who says, I knew this was coming. See, X, Y, and Z. No, I don't want to be that guy. I want to be the guy who says, I know who I belong to. I knew who I belong to. Because Revelation doesn't end with the beast or Babylon or Rome, wherever you want to interpret it. It ends with Jesus. That's where the whole thing is going. So don't panic. But don't sleepwalk either. Pay attention to the stillness. Tell the truth when nobody is checking, and put something under your feet that a machine could never generate. Because the ground under Wyoming still doesn't move when the wind picks up. One more note that I see a lot of. I see a lot of people studying, looking at Revelation, and not doing the work of today. Paul wrote specific letters about that. Do the work that you're called to today so that you are who God intends for you to be in the future. If this struck a chord with you, share it. Maybe somebody came to mind who's fearful of the end times or who's maybe too invested and just needs to get back to the basic simplicity of it. Not fearful, completely at peace with what God's doing. I'll see y'all out here. Find Jesus, fight culture, spread the good news.